So I still can't believe that that's true. 52 minutes to 17 minutes, Linden Hills
For
to
me,
downtown for you.
52 minutes for me from when I would get on a bus to when I would be able to walk in the doors of City Hall, having walked from Hennepin and
Oh, you're doing
right?
walk timing. Still.
To, which is maybe, I mean, I'm a fast walker.
If you told me, if
But
I was
then it was 17, but I will no longer have a stop in front of my house. I'll have to come down here, which is fine.
If you tell a non-transit user you can take a bus and be downtown in 17 minutes, that's pretty good. That might win some converts.
It's honestly faster than Google Maps tells me I can make it to my parking spot.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
Rolling on tap, 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 people. This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
Let's do our intro first before we get going. We both got squeaky brakes today.
Oh my.
Okay. It's a gray day here on the Wedge Live podcast. There's probably water droplets blocking your view if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/Wedge Live. I'm here with Linea Palmisano, council member, Ward 13.
We're committed to a ride today.
We're riding today here on the Wedge Live podcast, so you're going to want to watch on YouTube. Have you been doing a lot of biking lately? I know last year it sounded like you hadn't been.
You know, less biking and more running because I trained for the Twin Cities 10 mile this summer.
But you have a real, honest to goodness.
I have my regular bike.
No huffing and puffing.
No, less huffing and puffing. Okay. But this is my regular bike. My son still takes it from me because it's a lot lighter than his bike. So he prefers it when he goes out.
So the plan today is you're going to take me on a tour of the new E-Line route. Mm-hmm. E-Line is opening next year, right?
That's what they say.
Okay, maybe not. And
I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it, but it's really interesting the work they're doing.
If you've been watching construction on Hennepin Avenue through Uptown, that's going to accommodate the new E-Line, and it also goes through Ward 13 to all the way to Edina.
I think about 25% of it is in the 13th Ward, okay. And so that means roughly $15 million of investment in my community, and that's really something to celebrate.
Okay, let's celebrate it. Let's go. We're biking here on 36th Street west to Bede-Makaska.
We're taking basically the route of where the E-Line will go, starting at Hennepin.
Okay.
Right now we're on the edge of the very new part of my ward, 36th Street up here in the northern half of the East Harriet neighborhood. Ooh, that was close.
Yeah, everybody's favorite bike lane transition here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we good?
I think so. So how are you feeling? I've been stressing out about the election. A good thing about this podcast is it's happening before the presidential election and it won't come out until after the presidential election. So if we seem inappropriately happy, it's because we don't know the results. We're hopeful still.
Yeah. I'm cautiously optimistic.
I'm
a little bit, my perspective might be colored by the fact that I have our localist DFL Action Center. I'm hosting it in my house, in my backyard.
Today.
And so I get to see these amazing young women that are on the Harris Walls campaign show up every day to work out of my garage room.
So let's not talk too much about the election because
we won't know the reason.
Because it's going to be stale by the time this airs.
Here, I'll switch to a more fun topic. I had the strangest constituent issue that I thought I would deal with as a Minneapolis city council member in this new part of my ward, the Lakewood Cemetery.
Really?
The other day.
It wasn't Mike Norton getting locked in the cemetery again, was it? He gets locked in the cemetery frequently.
No, but I hear he hangs out there. He might want to offer lessons on how to get in and out after hours.
I think you have to get caught by security and they let you out. That's how you get out after hours.
Well, I was told in my research of this issue that it was Commissioner Kathy Abene told me that there were actually some really awful grave robbing issues there.
Really?
Like a long time ago, but back before you or I lived here. And because I was questioning these spikes, right? I'm gonna go. If you could just for a moment behold the spikes on these. Those aren't just little ornate things, those are spears, John.
I have noticed how menacing they are, and that is to prevent grave robbing, you say.
Well, I'm not sure what it looked like back in the 90s or whenever this grave robbing thing was happening. So anyhow, I get a call from a constituent who is horrified, and he said it wasn't the first time he's had to see this happen. A deer tried to leap the Lakewood Cemetery fence and instead impaled itself on the fence.
Yeah.
Deer, wildlife are DNR things.
Otherwise, cemeteries are great places for deer, I have noticed.
In the paper last week, there was an article about the oldest cemetery in Minneapolis. It's not this one, but there were deer in that picture. And it horrifies me now because animal control had to come out, and because DNR is often far away from Minneapolis, animal control and police have to essentially try and dispatch this deer to end its long suffering.
I fear that we have chosen a path that's not conducive to talking.
It'll get better up here, I promise.
Okay, this will be the portion of the episode where I speed up the biking action. We're just gonna zoom right through this part. Did you hear I was honored at the city council recently? You saw that, right?
I was there.
Yeah.
I meant to say that when I met you, is to greet you with congratulations for the cat resolution.
I have fielded so many media requests this year about the cat tour. It's becoming a part-time job, just fielding media requests about the cat tour.
Can you quit your day job and just be an advocate for cats professionally?
There's no money in cat touring, apparently. Or I'm just bad at monetizing cat touring, I should say. So what are you working on? What are you excited about?
I am really excited about this E-line work, despite some of the controversy that it created, and the TV coverage and all of that. The E-line is 13.3, I think, miles long. And yes, it's supposed to have ridership by the end of 2025. This is an area, you'll see it's just a four-way stop right now. We're gonna go left.
We're going left?
So. Thank you.
That was a high quality left turn I made. Anything besides the E-line that you're working on that you're just like...
Well, cannabis zoning is done.
Yeah, how do you feel about that? You wanted
how I feel about that.
You wanted a buffer between
businesses.
The shops, right? You wanted to keep that in.
Yeah, and it's important to know. Josh would have told you that had we caught him in Flipside. He's one of the owners of Flipside. That idea comes from industry, actually. Industry wants that because...
Well, it's anti-competition, right?
Well, they want it not, about next door. They want there not to be some attractive big cluster of them in Minneapolis so that people who are coming into the city just go to that one area.
Right.
And forget about the onesie, twosie places further out or around. like I said at the council meeting, it's not really, I don't think it's the city's job to prevent competitive behavior from businesses. Maybe not anti-competitive behavior,
Right.
but it really is about the residents and the people that live around them and making sure that, you know, there's spacing in between. I'm not sure that going on our old tobacco spacing requirements is the way we should move forward. So I ultimately couldn't support it, but I also knew it was gonna pass. There's a lot of good things in there, though.
The park board is, I got a email from my park board commissioner talking about them taking up the issue of having it in parks. And
How's that gonna go?
I don't know. She sounds like she wants to outlaw it.
Oh, who is your commissioner?
Schaefer. I think you should apply the same rules for cannabis as you do for tobacco. Because I was very annoyed in Ward 13 once watching a concert in the park, and a guy with a cigar parks himself right near me. And I guess that's allowed,
Yeah.
but it was very irritating.
Here,
I think you just need to have some equity.
Let's pause here if that's
Okay.
all right.
Right here at the bus stop. I remember this being a controversy.
Yeah, so
So Metro Transit wanted to have the stop across the intersection because you avoid getting stopped at the light. And people were upset about the
This way.
trees, right?
people were really upset about the trees.
And Metro Transit has
I'm
moved it
upset
here.
about the trees. I really think, but look at what they've been able to do. They've been able to preserve these two trees within the station area.
Yeah.
Like,
Look at that
that's
dog.
pretty cool. That is amazing. He almost looks top heavy. Like he's about
He's
to-
even got a towel. They know the dog is going to do that. They've got a towel set up to make sure he doesn't mess up the car.
That's very refined in terms of the huskies I used to have. Now I have two boys that are actually a lot like sled dogs that I used to have, more than you would think.
So the argument for putting it over there was you get through the light. Ideally, every bus stop should be past the light, so you can just keep going. You don't have to wait there when everyone is boarded. So, and that was the debate. Do we have better, more efficient transit, or do we preserve the trees?
Or we
I
could
don't
just
know.
keep a four-way stop here too. Actually, so here a couple
True.
interesting things about this intersection. Over the past 7 months, I think a lot of people, a lot of the public that was inconvenienced by this would be surprised to know there were three major public works projects happening here in this intersection at the same time and in a very coordinated way. Public Works, their main one was a sanitary one, right? So that hole in the middle of the intersection was like 100 feet deep.
You got a 100-foot deep hole?
It was crazy, and they found all kinds of like really old, crazy artifacts and old tools and stuff like that. But then we also have this, in old historic pictures of this area, it would flood like a lake, and it was like, they would call it a lake. I forget the name of the lake, like Lake Chipotle.
We had Lake Blaisdell at Franklin and Lindale. It used to be called Lake Blaisdell.
Yep. So that's why I haven't counted recently, but before this project started, there were 17 or 18 drains installed here. And then unknown, a lot of utility connections and buried stuff that weren't ever even marked on a sheet that caused some delays. But the city got in and out of the intersection, and then Metro Transit realized they needed to continue to keep the whole intersection closed for some of their work. But some of the features of this are the bump outs, right? The shorter crossing distance. They were able to make a lot of pedestrian improvements in this area. The signals to put this back together all the way have actually been delayed due to the hurricane. Some of the parts they need have been long delayed because of the recent hurricane. So that's what is delaying some of this progress of putting all of the lights back in. It was difficult, and it was difficult for store owners too. I think I know from talking to a lot of them throughout the summer, at the end of the day, they think maybe we shouldn't have been so coordinated about this, The city moved that huge public works project up a couple years so that 2 years into E-line,
have to do it again.
They wouldn't have to close it. But at the end of the day, I think business owners were pretty united in saying, we wish you did close it twice for less periods of time than close it for 7 months straight, because that was tough for them. But, you know, in true 13th Ward fashion, we had KSTP out here, we had CARE 11 out here to hear about how these business owners were struggling, where we have, as you pointed out earlier, some other very intensive, very disruptive projects going on in other parts of our city that you don't hear about. And that's too bad. So I hope that people came to and used these shops and everything during that time because of that advocacy and that media. But I just want to point out that when we do these projects, I think we always can learn from them and do better. For example, maybe we should have closed it twice for less.
Do you think? Because the argument is you just rip the street up once, you close it once, it's more efficient that way.
From an engineering perspective and maybe a cost of materials perspective, that makes sense. From a business perspective, they have cited case studies that after 6 weeks of closure, your revenue goes down by X percent. And then by six, you know, and then more is this other percent. Like the revenue is scary for a small business owner.
It's always easy to say, because in Uptown the argument was don't do it at all, don't do it, even though it hasn't been reconstructed in 60 years and you need to do it. There's very short-term thinking with business owners, and I feel the frustration, but also you have a whole city to take care of and roads and infrastructure that it needs taken care of, and it's easy to say don't do it. Don't ever do it, but you kind of have to do it at some point.
Yeah, well, and
you gotta bite the bullet.
We can always be better at communications. Eric Thompson is the Metro Transit guy. I would really choose to give a shout out if I could on your show, because he's really worked hard to try to be accommodating as much as possible and to communicate as much as possible. Some of the miscommunication would come from, they'd have a subcontractor in here or a sub of a sub, and someone would come out and speak with them. When are you going to be done? And they'd give you their answer for their part of the project, right? Which means nothing to when will this whole intersection be reopened. But there would be just difficulty because some people would be communicating to the people actually here doing the work, and that was maybe different than the line that Metro Transit was trying to coordinate with all the other players.
So you mentioned a four-way stop. Is that something that's on the table here?
No.
So you're giving me false promises about a four-way stop.
This is still going to be a street light, which is important for the.
So they're going to rig the signal timing so that it doesn't matter that the bus has to stop here? Because
I think so. I think
I'm going to be mad for eternity if the tree people ruined it for bus riders forever.
Would it do the carbon offset of the idle time versus the gain?
I feel like we can plant trees. Look, they saved trees on Hennepin Avenue in Uptown. Mm-hmm. They saved a bunch of trees. I recommend people ride that bikeway. You're curving through like it's a slalom through the trees.
It's a meander.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good for speed of those racing bikes.
I always say bike and tree can coexist, and I really believe it. Bus and tree can probably coexist too. Mm-hmm. Because are you going to ride the E-line when it opens?
I hope so.
Can you imagine what the destinations are that you're going to go to?
Hopefully my job at City Hall.
Oh, really? You can see yourself riding it to City Hall?
If my children don't need, all the different things that are not on the E-line in terms of all the other pieces and parts of my job. What's really neat about the E-line is they fixed all of the sidewalk here, right, in the E-line cost. Unfortunately, then you get here, I got one of my very favorite stores, coffee and tea. We knew, how do I say, their espresso machine busting during the construction last summer was actually a really important part of this project.
Okay.
The water pressure being turned back on completely blew out.
Oh.
And it really helped us to diagnose some important shifts in water pressure that we were seeing and adjustments we had to make for one of the city water projects going on here. The point here in this intersection is getting clean water in, right, and into those drains so it doesn't become a lake. And the sanitary sewer water out. But in reestablishing the water instead of the bypass water, it blew out their system, and it led to some important diagnoses in how we finished this project, unfortunately.
So I find that every time I talk to you, I remember last year, you're talking to me in great detail about infrastructure in some way or another. You haven't been on the Public Works Committee, have you?
I was vice chair my first term.
Okay.
When we were working on the Green Line project. So my very first year in office were all of those long public hearings about the municipal consent for the Green Line project.
Really?
Which is why I said I'll believe it when I see it in terms of our ridership on E-Line.
Right.
Should we say hi to Jim, or should we keep on going?
I feel like we're going to get bogged down, and you want to stop and talk to people. It's going to bog us down.
Imagine that, me wanting to stop and talk to people, John. Here's the other piece I wanted to show you. You didn't want an 8-hour-long podcast with me.
No, it's a pain in the butt to edit these together just with two people.
So this is actually, this was temporary pavement we put down years ago. But the goal, the kind of future of this restaurant, what they would like is to be able to bump out the sidewalk pretty much all the way to that bump out. This is an unusually wide street. Right. It's wide because that's the fire station, the old fire. It's not a fire station, it's a restaurant. That's where I had my wedding reception after we got married in the Rose Garden. But that's an old fire station, and so the street was wider to accommodate the turning maneuvers of fire trucks back in the day.
Are you frustrated with how wide it is? Do you wish there could have been more street reconstruction and kind of like narrowed the street?
I wish there could have been more sidewalk changes because of it, right? Like it kills me a bit that it only went up to there. And I get that that's because of grade and the changes to grade that they needed for the station area. But the real improvement isn't people wanting to, convene outside the dentist office. It's about people being able to take their especially great coffee or sit out here on the sidewalk to make this road a little bit narrower. There's no need for it to be as wide as it is. And for this to just have some improvements for walkers, right? Like this street light, why we have this street light here, but only the Excel poles is unclear. But
that is the big headline out of this is Councilmember Palmisano calling for more street reconstructions in downtown Linden Hills.
More sidewalk reconstructions in downtown Linden Hills.
You can't add more sidewalk if you're not going to rip up some street.
Well, that's true. You'd have to change the curb. And that was part of what we ran into. In trying to make this curb line better, you're running into the whole structure of the street. Yeah. Interesting you ask, will I take the E-line? So right now, the 6 goes right past my house, and it takes me roughly 52 minutes
52
to get to City Hall from
So what have you timed what it's going to take you with the new E-line?
I think the answer is 17 minutes.
17 minutes?
Which, well, the goals of this project, oh, by the way, I got these bike lanes installed before I was a council member.
Well,
this was my advocacy, John.
I wouldn't brag
Southwest
about these
pedal
bike
power,
lanes.
baby.
Oh, no fan of these painted on bike lanes. You said before you were a council member?
Before I was a council member.
Okay.
They were lanes through the business district, and then the Sharrows up and down Upton. I made you do that before, right? I was like, this is the bike route, and you're like, where are these Sharrows? I'm like, see, you can barely see them anymore.
So 52 minutes to 17? That's a shocking...
Which is great, because the goal that Metro Transit states is a 20% reduction in time. You know, by way of paying before you board,
right,
less stops,
signal timing, bus lanes.
Signal priority, yeah. The 6 that goes past my house will allegedly continue to run and then probably become a feeder to the Green Line station. So I don't know what that trip would be to take the 6 to the Green Line station into downtown.
Which Green Line station?
The West Lake station, the biggest planned one for Minneapolis, which used to be in my ward, but now it is part of Councilmember Cashman's district.
Do you think council mayoral relations are getting worse? They seem worse.
Really, it's good to hear an objective observer like you, John, say that because
I didn't say who was right or wrong. I just said they seem worse, right?
I think they're way worse.
Okay.
Some days I wish for a good Lisa Bender, Mayor Frey
Did they get along?
tussle.
Oh, they didn't get along. I saw them hug at a planning convention after she left office.
Ooh, but I think in many ways that was more civil, or it was just more above board.
You say she had good reason
What
to
they
be
were
mad at
fighting for, yes. I mean, they were the issues of the day that a city should be wrestling with. And in the right ways, you know. I'm not here to comment on all the meetings, the leadership meetings that Lisa Bender never showed up for, or any of that.
No, are we criticizing Lisa Bender?
No, I understand how this podcast was born.
How was it
I
born?
appreciate.
She did not found the Carol Becker founded the Wedge Live podcast, not me.
I thought the Wedge Neighborhood Association fueled your
It's true.
passion.
Yeah. But that was way before the podcast. That was live tweeting, back when Twitter was a thing.
Here's another one of these stations that was supposed to be done by now. But you can see just how serious all of this work is. These aren't little projects setting up all of this concrete for these double long buses in these small little old districts.
Is Ward 13 excited about the E-line?
Well, that's where you come in, John.
They don't listen to me. I've never won an election here.
Part of I think part of that is making it happen.
You think once it gets built, people will rejoice?
Yeah, well, I think after this water lining project gets through year 2, people will rejoice. My husband woke up one morning and he said, "Linea, just think if this was your election year." He said, "I would think Public Works was single-handedly trying to sink you."
Yeah, the strong mayor has it out for Councilmember Palmisano. So I still can't believe that that's true. 52 minutes to 17 minutes, Linden Hills to downtown for you.
52 minutes for me from when I would get on a bus to when I would be able to walk in the doors of City Hall, having walked from Hennepin and
Oh, you're doing
right?
walk timing. Still.
To, which is maybe, I mean, I'm a fast walker.
If you told me, if
But
I was
then it was 17, but I will no longer have a stop in front of my house. I'll have to come down here, which is fine.
If you tell a non-transit user you can take a bus and be downtown in 17 minutes, that's pretty good. That might win some converts.
It's honestly faster than Google Maps tells me I can make it to my parking spot. So France 44 used to have a gorgeous garden out here and a seating space and stuff. And it is now a double long E-line station, or becoming one. There was a massive gas explosion in this intersection a couple of weeks ago. I say it lightheartedly because nobody was injured and everything was fine with it. But here, let me get back to my notes if there's anything exciting to see here.
You prepped.
That's my brand, man. I'm a nerd of the 10th degree. So this is all still stage 1 work. They expect to be done around Thanksgiving, and then they'll come back and do the stage 2 work in the spring. Everybody, including France 44, had to be evacuated from that gas line explosion. Especially lately in 43rd and Upton and now here, there have been challenges with unmarked utilities that nobody's claiming, right? The city's like, oh, that's not us.
We're just discovering things underground?
That's not us. Yeah, we're discovering things. The contractor calls through the whole list: Excel, USI, Centerpoint, Xfinity, and basically nobody says, yes, it's ours. That is actually a big challenge, and frankly, it causes a lot of delays in the project.
Right. So this thing where the city council members are criticizing MPD and the chief and the mayor over the Sawcheck, the shooter, the guy who shot his neighbor, and he'd been asking for help for months, and then he was finally shot by his neighbor, and then MPD didn't.
I think they were both asking for help for months.
Were they both asking for help?
I don't know that for sure.
So it took MPD from like Wednesday to Sunday night to arrest him, and this drew some criticism, and I'm wondering if you share that criticism, if you think it was misguided. I think the chief said it was politically motivated. So how do you feel about the criticism? Is it justified?
So I must admit, I was looking at that from afar. I was at a family funeral, as you know, because you're supposed to do so I only was seeing it from a distance. I know when I have a problem in my neighborhood, I call somebody, right? I don't wait to send some perfectly worded letter and get other council members on to then send a message to MPD
so like
or to the mayor.
Andrew Jenkins was emailing back, like through the summer at least.
Oh, I mean, for years,
trying to resolve it.
Back when she was a policy aide, there were constant neighbor-to-neighbor issues involving Sawcheck and other neighbors. And, you know, we all have these situations in our office where you have neighbor-to-neighbor complaints against one another. And they often get escalated, and you never know how much they're going to escalate. When one person or both individuals in a situation have some mental illness or seemingly want to provoke one another, that gets even more tenuous. But I wouldn't ever politicize something. I mean, I worry we would have we shouldn't have things have to go down like that. And I know from actually having conversations with the police that there was a long period of time that they were in contact and on the phone with Mr. Sawcheck's sister, trying to ask, how might we de-escalate this? What would set your brother off? How might we do this in a productive way? You know, getting her advice on how to, on how to manage the situation. They also had 4 murders over the weekend that I was putting those on top of one another. I didn't realize that 2 incidents of that had happened from afar. 4 murders, and trying to talk through all of the opportunities to get this person out and in custody without getting into a potential shootout seemed viable. I don't know enough about police work. I am critical of the entire system. I am critical of the entire system and everything we've said that we are going to build out. Why cope at one point in time, before, not after the shooting. Hey, girls!
You're not bringing your friends over to interrupt our very serious conversation, are you?
I'm not trying to end this conversation, but let's just pause this conversation for a second. Hey, Aaron, I always sporty when you see, these are the girls that work in my garage room in the DFL Action Center.
Hello, you're on a podcast right now.
This is John Edwards of Wedge Live. We have Claire, Kira, and Brianne. They are amazing women that work for the Walls.
Yeah, we're the
the
girl
Kamala.
power in our carriage house.
You've interrupted she was in a dicey situation with a question, and you walked up.
I'm here to distract you.
I'll ignore the text I just got.
Are you actually, where are you biking?
The E-line route. Have you heard of the E-line?
The bus stops.
Okay, you haven't heard. It's a fancy bus. It's going to get the council member from Linden Hills to downtown in 17 minutes.
Wow.
I think. I'm going to have to maybe correct that statement later.
Well, it's airing. It's airing
Retract
as you said it.
Thank you, girls.
Good luck.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.
So it sounds like what the chief was saying.
So how can you not be excited about the election with these girls?
I'm very excited.
Every day coming to your house.
I'm confused why people come in from outside Minneapolis to door knock in Minneapolis? That seems like an odd concept. You would think we would send volunteers out.
I spoke with an older woman who just said she felt more comfortable.
We just have a
because she
plethora of
lives in
Democrats.
White Bear Lake or something where, she felt like she couldn't really talk to her neighbors about politics, but this is, I think, how people are burning off their pre-election anxiety, is we're just going to go talk to people who are in large concentration,
Right.
similarly minded to us.
Every door is a new adventure. No one's going to be mad at you.
Unless you're talking about, the local races.
Or street reconstruction.
Or how long the intersection is going to be closed.
So it sounds like what the chief was saying was there was instigation on both sides. I'm hearing a little bit of that from you. I'm just wondering.
Without details, I believe that to be true.
Okay.
And that's
because the chief got in trouble for seeming to blame the man that was
victim
shot,
blaming.
Davis.
Mm-hmm. Yep, he did.
And saying that there were more facts to be learned.
I think it's really complex, and I say that more from handling so many other neighbor-to-neighbor situations over the years, right? It's always about, okay, here's your story, and here's your story, and how can both of these things be true? And oftentimes, both of these individuals, different neighbors' stories are true in their own lens, in their own way, right? And there are neighbors who live in every neighborhood in my ward who are seemingly at war with one another every day, and they try to get the city involved, and the city's involvement is sometimes challenging to access. I think we need to make it clearer. There was someone who professionally works for COPE, our county's COPE team, who was a door knocker yesterday, and I struck up a conversation because, well, she was in my kitchen, and I was asking her casually about these kinds of cases. And she talked about how COPE, she is actually a crisis, she goes in after bad things happen, and she was talking about how with door knocking, she loves this door knocking. It's so much easier than her day job of door knocking in these challenging situations and with people who really need different kinds of help. She talked about how her training and the training of COPE is they're like masters and above level people, so they can write mental health holds, whereas, for example, our behavioral health crisis team, Canopy, often can't. I think depending on their certification, they can't. But so they're a different type of function in our city, and it was good to hear that from her perspective of here's the things the city should be really routing to COPE, and here's the things that the city should be really accessing BCR for, Canopy teams for. And I mean, I feel like somewhere along the line, not after someone shot their neighbor, but somewhere along the line, we failed at that. We failed at that type of outreach that could have prevented this from happening. We failed at the warrant process back and forth from city to county and back. We failed at, different lines of communication. I guess what I'm saying is, I don't put it all on police. They had a lot going on, and I don't know why we can't have other people with other resources talking to this person's family member or working on other ways to apprehend the suspect safely.
Another thing I was disappointed with from the chief was he was putting it on prosecutors, as in police are afraid to do their jobs because of prosecutors. Essentially, like the way I hear it is we've had too much police accountability in the form of cops being prosecuted, and that's why police can't do the things you want them to do.
No, I think that's absurd. But
the way I phrased it, or the way the chief phrased it?
No, that characterization sounds absurd. That there's too much accountability right now.
So he was blaming
There
prosecutors. He said cops are too scared to do their jobs because of prosecutors.
I don't think we should be blaming prosecutors for such a...
Okay, so we can disagree with Chief O'Hara on that.
I do. Is that exactly what he said?
It is, yeah.
Okay. I didn't watch these press conferences, but...
Anyone who suggests that the cops don't want to arrest this person is simply wrong. To be frank, The officers, however, are scared. They're scared of being prosecuted if they get into a situation where they make a mistake trying to do their job and protect the public. I'm sick and tired of hearing this situation. The reality we are in is you are damned if you do and damned if you don't.
He specifically said police are scared to do their jobs because of prosecutors, like he called out prosecutors. I will insert the clip so we can be sure that I got it right.
I believe you. I think that I see and hear and am fearful for law enforcement officers because of the amount of guns in our space.
Right.
And clearly this individual had a gun.
Right.
And ended up using it. So in general, I think
that's
guns
why we
in our environment.
That's why we have the police.
Yep.
That's the argument against police abolition, is that this society has way too many guns and it's just way too dangerous for the rest of us if we don't have people to apprehend the people who are shooting other people.
And we shouldn't necessarily expect the people that have those skills in the guns to necessarily be doing all of the services that go along with managing these difficult neighbor-to-neighbor conflicts. So there's that.
Okay. Well, I feel like we talked that one out.
You know what I like about these conversations that we have in person is that we don't agree on some things. We probably agree on more than we realize, but we can talk it out.
Yeah.
in a reasoned way.
So,
should we cut through here to get?
I've noticed you doing more explaining. Like, you're the explainer of the how do you
During
refer?
council meetings?
Yeah.
I try to sprinkle in facts, John.
No, I'm saying it as a compliment.
I hear a lot of emotions, and let me just sprinkle in these facts and
but
see what
of
happens.
your faction, I don't know how you label the various factions, but of your faction, you're the one who's like giving me something to understand. I like when people talk in council meetings because I want to understand where they're coming from, and you're the one doing it, and you don't have much backup. Even among the people who agree with you, you don't get a lot of backup, is what I'm saying. They can stand to open their mouths once in a while.
Thank you.
Are we in Edina?
Past this middle line, yes we are, John.
Okay, we started in Ward 10, now we're in Edina.
This is Edina. That's my ward.
I saw a news story from California where like the Beverly Hills side of the street is all fancy and taken care of, and the LA side of the street is all potholes.
Like legit, one side and the other side of the same
Yeah,
road?
it's a very stark difference, but we don't have that here. Even the Edina side of the street is terrible.
My husband's on a bike trip actually in California right now.
Oh.
Imagine that, you had to get out of the house with all the people walking in and out all the time.
It'd be nice to be in California now. Got a new median here, pedestrian safety feature.
That's kind of a big deal that you won't be able to turn in here.
Has that been a problem?
Individuals would say no. So this is the bus stop, the platform here, and soon to be the platform here. This is the bus stop that most serves Southwest High School students.
Okay.
And between the 47th and Xerxes 6 route and this 6 route, that's how a lot of Southwest High School students that don't drive or get rides from their friends get to and from school, and particularly after school activities. I used to coach at Southwest High School ages ago, back in like 2004 to 2009-ish. But the number of kids that you try to pile into your car because it was winter, there's no, shelter here, and they're standing here in the absolute dark, waiting a half hour or more for a bus to go home to Uptown. This is a huge improvement, and there's going to be a shelter here.
What do you think next year's election is going to be fought on? It was a very police boosters versus anti-police. It was very binary. Either you're for the police, you're against the police. I don't know if that's going to repeat itself in 2025. Based on what I know about who the candidates for mayor will be, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the theme.
No.
Do you have an idea what we're going to be fighting about next year?
I don't know, but honestly, I'm not looking forward to it.
So it's going to be completely different depending on who wins for president? If
I
Trump
wonder.
wins.
Because, you know, there are a lot of things that people want to blame in terms of rancor in local government that I honestly think the Trump presidency it was to their credit why people got so very nasty at their local governments. And some of it was an opportunity, right? Clearly, in the Trump presidency, we are not going to be investing in the housing, the shelters, the public housing authorities, et cetera. And so we were going to try to do it. It was like, we'll go it alone, you know? Like.
Right. And if you believe Elon Musk, massive cuts to the federal government.
Right.
And so more will be expected of cities at a time when they will be capable of less.
Right. And you know, coming out of the Trump presidency was this scary pandemic and then all of the ARPA money and everything else. And so it's hard. I really do think our national politics greatly impacts local government. I mean, not just in funding, but in mindset and in initiatives and other kinds of things. I think that will certainly color next year's election. It's rough.
You must have an outline of whatever your campaign message might be.
How do we do better on climate stuff? You know, we're not going to end up being able to do the franchise, the utility company stuff here by the end of the year. Everything we do next year is going to be very politically fraught. Labor Standards Board stuff is going to become, you know, a rallying cry to try to divide the progressives from the super progressives or some such thing.
Do you support that? Labor Standards Board?
I support the way that it would be constructed to have a lot of employers at the table.
Because the mayor is behind a version of that, right?
Yes.
And then the business
fact,
community
the
is against
mayor's
any
office-
version of it.
Yeah, the mayor's office worked really hard, made probably 80% of the progress that was made on it. I think that the council is looking to put in a lot more worker seats in relation to employer seats at the table, and that will be unbalanced and will be something I wouldn't.
And it's just advisory, right?
Yeah, you know, for a long time, one of the big tenets was they have to have the ability to do introduction into the legislative process. And that's just something you can't give somebody that isn't formally elected. Right. You can't legislate your authority. Like the city can't say, really, it's just going to be whatever the planning commission says.
Right, the planning commission doesn't even have that power.
So we legally cannot cede authority or introduce things by way of it not going through our body. But they can have recommendations, just like all other, is it 47 boards and commissions, like 700 people?
I think I covered everything on my sparse notes.
Oh, you have notes too? You prepare for these?
This
isn't just your brainchild of...
It is mostly just whatever comes into my head, but there's a few key points I wanted to hit. Letting you lead the way with your paragraphs and paragraphs of notes.
It's not paragraphs, it's on my phone. It's like a sentence that looks like a paragraph.
You wanted us to stop and talk to just countless people along the way. Imagine how long this would have gone.
I'm a council member. This is my space. Imagine being my child and going to the grocery store with me.
So I get that too. People recognize me all the time, maybe not as much as you, I don't know, but
I don't know
that is irritating to our loved ones. That every 5 feet, somebody's got to talk to you, say hi, and you got to take it. You can't say no.
I don't say no.
You can't say no.
But I don't.
You can't say no.
Yeah. But I do say no at council, as you pointed out. And as my husband says, Linnea, have you put the no in Palmisano today? Let's try to not make that a tagline. But yeah, I think I've found myself in a position to try to explain more. It's really weird to be the person with the most seniority on council. It's such a weird feeling.
How much
and
longer
I'm still
can
not
you go?
Used to it.
How much longer can you go?
I don't know. We'll see what.
It's not good for you.
It's not good for me?
It's too much.
Oh.
Too much time.
So you would prefer that I just step down?
You're the only one who will talk to me from that side. But no, it's exhausting. I'm stressed out and I have no responsibility. I'm just stressed out watching it.
I'm stressed out by the public works projects, John, but I'm hopeful.
So you're just gonna keep going, no end in sight.
I'm gonna keep going.
Okay. Got another torn up street. What city are we in at this point?
We are in Minneapolis here, all the
Okay.
way up to the center line. Edina will call this their downtown. This used to be, back when we did zoning like activity centers, right? That was a term in the old comp plan. This was the largest activity center south of Lake Street. It has just enough continuous commercial zoning had for alcohol.
Could we do cannabis here?
Yes, you could absolutely.
Okay, great. Are we gonna piss off Edina by putting in a bunch of cannabis shops?
I don't know how they articulate between the different sections, right? Like would cannabis rules that they come up with influence how close you could be to the side of the street, or does their world just end, at the center line? I don't know. The most important thing to know about this intersection is they have a contract deadline of November 15th. So here we are on November 3rd.
We gotta be done.
This doesn't really look 12 days from done.
You never know.
But you never know. So Metro Transit needs to be completely out of the intersection by that date. So that's
What happens if they're not?
that's going to be really, really tight.
You just get an extension, right?
Well, they've had lots of extensions. Like, are really, really tight deadlines with this project, as you've seen kind of throughout this piece that we've gone through. That's not really been the history of this project, is meeting tight deadlines.
Yeah.
One of the first delays they ran into here, though, were streetcar tracks. It's interesting, though, that they're tearing up the road for an E-line project, right? Then they discover these tracks that then need to be removed, right? Like, it's a little bit of the circle of life, right? Streetcar to roadway to E-line. But we only found out last week that they're actually going to have to close 50th to stay on track with some of this project and to stay on schedule. And we found out the day before the closure. We usually like to give people notice, especially business owners that, were their whole livelihood. So that's not how we like to typically do things around here. And so I'm always in this weird spot of how much to, can I say this on your show? How much to be a bitch about these things?
You can say that,
How much to try and just be supportive and, we're all going to get along, right? Like, at some point, you've pushed us to the point of, are you freaking kidding me?
Are you missing Lisa Goodman? I don't know why that popped in my head, but are you missing
I am. When I talk about it's really uncomfortable being the seniority person here. I mean,
Although
I
she's
don't
still
have,
there. She's still there.
There's some projects I want her to work on.
But does her job encompass any of Ward 13? It's all like revitalization of like downtown and like big commercial areas, right? Cultural districts.
But I really think there's interesting partnerships to be had, especially in some of these, in like the new precincts, and like we're starting to build police precincts with multifunctional space. Remember, there's going to be a hotel above the first precinct.
Yeah. Is that still happening? I can't remember what's
I don't know
happening
if
with
the hotel fell off the hook or not.
Seems like a weird thing to put above a police precinct in Minneapolis these days.
Is it soundproof then? Like, anyway. So I get to see Lisa Goodman from time to time, but in terms of being on the dais and arguing points, I miss Lisa Goodman's clarifying, whatever points that she would make. No, we were sometimes on different sides of things. Like the third precinct vote, right? Like I think she was kind of the clarion call to say no to it, and but I don't fill that space the same way, clearly.
Right. But like her being gone creates a vacuum where somebody's got to, even if you didn't always agree with her all the time, like
I try to step into that.
Has to talk.
Yeah, I try to sprinkle in the facts.
It just be one side talking.
Yeah. Thank you. So I do a lot of talking these days. more than I used to, I admit. But yeah, anything interesting here? Oh, giving a special shout out to Sohail at Raj. You might have seen the TV. I don't really watch TV, but there's a lot of TV episodes about Raj, Indian cuisine, which is a really great little space.
TV episodes, like HGTV style stuff?
No, like in a newscast.
Oh.
Sohail talking about how difficult this has made his business. I mean, he really is on a fragile edge of closure. So if you haven't tried it yet, you definitely should.
Can we end it?
Yeah.
Probably got close to 90 minutes of footage here.
It's going to take you ages.
It's going to take a long
Thank you for
time.
investing in me.
My guest has been Linea Palmisano, who represents Ward 13 on the Minneapolis City Council. Thank you for taking me on a tour of the E-Line, a future route.
Thank you for offering to go all the way from Upton to Edina.
I'm your host, John Edwards.
I'm Linea Palmisano.
This is the Wedge Live podcast. Next year, we're riding the bus. Thank you for listening.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.